Hi guys, my name is Isa. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about living life the right way. Let's get started. A little bit of context for this episode. I am someone who loves to journal. I just finished this journal and this is journal number 9, just started journal number 10. I'm going through my old journals and I am rereading my entries, trying to see what can I find for my podcast. So I am going to be making some episodes over my 2024 life slash mindset because I have grown so much since then, and I feel like that is just a completely different person that happens to be very relatable. So I will take you with me through my 2024 mindset, and I will also share my current mindset and what I did to go from that unhealed version to the healed version I am today. So when I was reading my old journal entries, I realized I was living life a very specific way, or at least I was trying to live life a specific way. And that's because I was living under the belief that there is a right way to live life, there's a right way to be, and a right way to do things. And if I don't do it exactly as I'm expected, something bad will happen. So basically, I need to do things correctly because I'm scared of what's going to happen if I don't. And this is something that deeply paralyzed me because I was so dissatisfied with my life, and yet whenever I tried to change, any attempt I made just felt wrong. I felt scared of making the wrong choice. I felt scared of even having the wrong goal. For the majority of 2024, my life became a checklist. I had a specific checklist of things that I was trying to achieve every single day, and that was just my life, day after day. So in the checklist, I would have waking up early, eating clean, exercising, doing my morning routine. Eating healthy was more like following the diet perfectly. And then exercising was mostly going to the gym. What's crazy to me was that in 2024, I became very close with my best friend at that moment. And that is probably one of the most beautiful friendships I've ever had. I want to say that that was probably the peak year of our friendship. And I also got a boyfriend, and this was my first boyfriend. So I could have had an amazing date with my boyfriend. But in that moment, that night when I journaled, I was like, I didn't exercise today. Like, I should have exercised, but I didn't exercise. I could have gone out to eat with my best friend and we could have had an amazing time together, and I would go home and be like, I ordered wings today, I feel so bad, this is why I can't lose weight. So if you think about it, I wasn't really living my life. Like, I wasn't really enjoying my life. I had my friendships, I had my relationships, but my main focus was all the things that I had to do and all the ways that I was falling short and all the different ways that I had to correct myself to make sure that I don't fall short. And I feel like in theory that would have been a perfect, productive and healthy day. Waking up early, having a morning routine, exercising, eating from a diet, having no cravings or no like cheat meals, going to the gym, sleeping early, that sounds like a get ready with me kind of video on TikTok. But as healthy as it sounds, I was feeling so much emotional pressure that it just wasn't healthy. Even those days where I was able to check most of it, I was under so much stress over what would happen if I didn't, that I don't even think it had a lot of healthy effects on me. I was just constantly stressed. Where did this come from? If you guessed, my parents. You guessed right. Well, my dad specifically was very, I don't even know what's the word. He was an almond parent, so he was obsessed with food and exercise and weight. He forced me into a diet. He forced me into exercising from when I was very young, and he would literally monitor me. He would monitor what I ate, if I didn't exercise, or if I did, how much did I exercise, how fast I was losing weight, if I was gaining weight. Like, he would just monitor me, and he would have this standard over the things that I was supposed to do, and he would get very upset with me if I didn't. And I say that right now, and it feels like it's not a big deal to have my dad get upset with me, but think about it from the point of view of a little girl who's like 10 years old. And it's like, they're giving me something to eat. I don't like it. I have a natural reaction because I don't like it. And my dad would either withdraw his love or his attention from me. Like, he would stop talking to me, or he would criticize me. Like, he would stand there and give me a speech over how I'm not trying, how I don't want it bad enough, how I don't care about my health, and just kind of like judge me over my cravings and judge me over my preferences in food. And that's just really scary. Like, I was a child, seeing my dad so angry at me, seeing my dad ignore me, seeing my dad dad act as if I was a burden obviously affected me. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that it didn't. It obviously did. And in that moment, the most important person in the whole world, my dad, because I was closer to my dad than with my mom. And also that being a person that I depend on, this was my caregiver. I couldn't just be like, you know what, dad, I don't like your reaction. I'm gonna stop talking to you. Like, I can do that right now, and I did. But as a child, I cannot do that. So I kind of have to do whatever it takes to avoid my dad having that reaction, not only to keep the peace and make sure that my life situation isn't threatened, but also I don't want to have my parent, either my mom or my dad, upset with me. Like, I want them to love me. Like, what do you mean? I'm your child. I basically learned I'm expected to do things a specific way, and if I don't, there will be consequences. And if you had a similar experience, we developed an inner critic, and our inner critic is actually that authority that just constantly criticized what we did. So you could call it inner critic, or you could also call it internalization of the critical parent. So how does that look like? For example, when I was a child, my dad was this scary version of himself who expected me to be perfect, and I was a child, right? So that was the dynamic. That's what I learned. So now that my dad, or at least in 2024, where my dad was no longer in my life, I still had that authority figure criticizing me and expecting me to do things a specific way. And I was also that child who felt pressured. The difference is the authority in the child existed within me. So yes, I didn't speak to my dad anymore, but I still had a version of him in my mind. I was talking to myself the same way that my dad would talk to me. I was criticizing myself the same way that he would criticize me. For example, if I exercised 3 times a week, I would immediately tell myself, no, well, I should have exercised 5 times a week. 3 times is not enough. And I don't personally believe that, but my father did. And that's who I internalized. So that's what I was telling myself. I have both the authority and the child fighting within, because that's the dynamic I learned. What do you mean? I spent 9 years in that dynamic with my actual father. Of course, I'm gonna recreate that. And it's not so crazy. I feel like as humans, we tend to try to recreate certain scenarios as we grow older. So for example, you had a parent who like emotionally abandoned you, and you had to earn their love and earn their attention. Maybe you see that reflected in your relationships. You pick someone who's emotionally unavailable, where you have to perform for them and convince them that you deserve their attention and you deserve their love. And you're just trying to rewrite history almost, or that's just the life that you know how to live. I think another key aspect in this situation would be I was relating to myself the way that my father related to me. So because my father related to me with a lot of criticism and judgment and expectations, I started relating to myself the same way, with criticism, judgment, expectations. If you had a parent who was constantly criticizing you, and you become someone who constantly criticizes themselves, you most likely started relating to yourself the same way that your parents started relating to you. A different word for relating would be treating. You learn how to treat yourself based on how your parents are treating you. And I think for me, and for most people, healing starts when you decide to relate to yourself differently. When you decide, I don't want to treat myself the same way that my parents would treat me. I don't want to live the same lifestyle that my parents gave me. And this is also known as reparenting, where you kind of have to unlearn what you learned from your parents, and you have to give yourself a new structure, give yourself a new way of treating yourself. In that specific scenario, with the idea of there's a specific way that I should do things, there's this expectations of how I should behave, how I should act, how can I give myself a different outlook? How can I change that belief? If this is you, I want you to just take a second to meditate on the fact that life doesn't have rules. There's not a specific way for you to live life. And that's why you're going to see some people going to university and other people not going to university. Some people going to masters after university, and some people just immediately going to work. And even if you compare it to people who go to university, I took 6 years in university. I have friends who didn't finish university. They just dropped mid-degree and started working, and they seem very happy. I have other friends that graduated faster than me. I have classmates that are already married. I'm not even in a relationship. There's people already married. Not only that, there's people my age who already have kids, who already have a family. Like, what do you mean? There's people who devote their lives to traveling, other people who devote their lives to their family, other people who devote their lives to their careers. Like, there's so many paths you can take. There's not a specific way to live your life. And when you realize that, you also have to accept the idea that nobody's expecting you to live life a certain way. And that was such a shock for me when I was giving myself so many expectations. And I can see this in my journal entries. Like, I started questioning them. I was like, I feel so much pressure over following the diet every single day, eat every single meal. But now that I think about it, there's not a single person that has asked me if I have had a cheat meal. My boyfriend wasn't monitoring me my meals. My best friend wasn't monitoring my meals. My sister, my dog, my mom, they weren't monitoring what I was eating. So I literally had to take a step back and ask myself, who other than myself has any of those expectations for me? Absolutely nobody's asking me any of those things. Absolutely nobody cares how many times I go to the gym, what I had for lunch, or how many times I buy fast food, or how many times I don't buy fast food. Nobody cares. The only other person was my dad, and the only reason why I was expecting certain things of myself was because of my dad. So I want to ask you, if you have a checklist and you feel like you're struggling to just check everything off that list, who else is asking you to do that? Who else is monitoring how efficient you are at living your life? And if you tell me your parents and you still live with them, understandable. This was something that I was dealing with actively when I was living with my parents. But as an adult, if you're outside of your home, you are no longer under your parents' roof, and you are taking that control for yourself and your life, who else is monitoring you that way? And I am so sorry, but if you can actually give me someone who's monitoring your life and expecting you to live your life a certain way, I think you should dump them. I think you should remove them from your life. Like, honestly, I would just find it exhausting to date someone or even be friends with someone who's just constantly, what did you have for dinner? Didn't you buy that 2 days ago? Like, why are you going out again? Did you exercise? Why didn't you exercise? You're not exercising enough. Like, why do you care so much? Let me breathe. And as exhausting as it would be to have someone just constantly asking me that, it's the same level of exhaustion that I felt with myself. I wasn't enjoying life. I was literally going to sleep every single day with dissatisfaction because I didn't feel happy. I just had this constant sensation of, I'm doing things wrong. I need to change my whole life tomorrow. Like, I need to do everything I can to shake this feeling off. And when I tell you, it hit me so hard when I realized I've gone to sleep with this sensation of, I'm living my whole life wrong, or I suck at living my life, for months. I spent months going to sleep with that sensation, so unsatisfied with my life, because I wasn't living life. I was checking things off a list. That was not my life. And you know how I know that? Because I didn't ask myself. I didn't ask myself what I wanted. And this is something that I will talk a little bit more in my next episode as well. I feel like this episode and my next episode will overlap a little bit over how we relate to expectations and ourselves. But I basically realized in no moment did I ask myself, is this the kind of life that I want? For example, one of the reasons why I was so focused on having a morning routine was because in 2023 I started a morning routine, and it was so easy for me because I had a remote job. I could just wake up, have a really slow morning, and connect. I didn't have to think of getting ready. I didn't have to think of commuting. But then fast forward 2024, where I'm forcing myself to have this morning routine and I'm struggling so much to actually keep up with it. It's just not working for me because I'm no longer working from home. Like, I have to go to the office. And me going to work in person already means that I have to wake up an hour and a half before to get ready, have breakfast, and commute. So having that morning routine would mean waking up 3 hours before my job. And that was just too much for me. It just wasn't working. I wasn't resting enough. I wasn't even enjoying my morning when I did have my morning routine. And reflecting back, reading all of my journal entries and seeing how much I was struggling, I just told myself, you know what? I think it would have been easier for me to have a night routine that period of my life. I feel like that would have been easier for me to achieve than a morning routine. But I never asked myself. That. Like, I would have this expectation and I would try to force myself to meet that expectation. And if I didn't meet that expectation, I just assumed something was wrong with me. I was just so scared of what would happen that I would just keep forcing myself to meet that expectation. I didn't ask myself, where does that expectation come from? Like, do I actually want to have a morning routine? Do I actually want to go to the gym every single day? And specifically that moment in my life, it was just so anxiety inducing for me to go to the gym, just because even when I went, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So I wasn't even enjoying exercising. And just to give you an idea of how life would be without that expectation of you have to do things a certain way, I'll give you an example of something I recently did. Okay, so I started contemplating going to the gym once again. And before I signed myself up, I just observed my days, observed how I was feeling, and asked myself, when would have been a good time for me to go to the gym today? And would I have actually gone today if I had the chance? The answer was no. I don't even know why, but I struggled so much with the idea of going to the gym. I think specifically for right now, it's just the idea of commuting, like going to the gym, changing clothes. I feel like that just takes so much time, and that just makes me feel so resistant to exercise. And this is where reparenting comes from, because my father would never ask me anything. He would just force me. So me learning to treat myself differently, I'm asking myself, okay, a gym membership doesn't sound like the best idea for me. What is something else that I could try that I would feel comfortable with so that I could exercise? Buying dumbbells. Literally getting dumbbells for my home so I can just come home and exercise without thinking of how much time I'll spend in the changing room or my time commuting. I'm pretty sure I got them Monday. I exercised Tuesday, Wednesday, and then today, Friday. I'm pretty sure that I exercised already more than I would have exercised if I had had a gym membership. I guess meditate on that. Like, if I had forced myself to do a gym membership, even though I knew I had some resistance to it and it just wasn't working, I would feel so guilty over getting a membership and just not using it. But because I took the time to ask myself, what do I want? What works for me? What would actually feel comfortable? What would actually be more aligned with what I want to experience? I was able to achieve more than what I would have forcing myself. And if all of this has made you reflect on how you're living your life and you realize, I'm living a life people want me to live, or I'm living a life I think people want me to live, but it's not the life that I actually want, I have a question for you, just so you can reflect, see if you can picture what you want, okay? So it's, if nobody was evaluating you, if there were no consequences, and if your body or weight had nothing to do with it, which habits would you genuinely choose? And when I reflect on the idea that there are no rules in life, like I could pretty much do whatever I want, I realized I could live a life that is just consistent with what I like. So like, for example, I love my dog. I want to spend as much time as I can with my dog. That would mean living a life where if I want to exercise, I could exercise at home with my dog, or I could take out my dog for a walk. If I want a life where I go out with my friends a lot and I celebrate with them, I would need a life where I have more flexibility with eating out, where I don't feel guilty every single time because I know, well, I'm going out with my friends. You should build a life that makes it easy or convenient to do the things that you like. I think another good example would be like traveling. I've traveled a bit this past year. I think within this year it has been mostly in Canada where I live, and I realized, you know what? I can actually get a car, travel as much as I can in my free time. Like, I could literally bring my dog and just go to the next province and do like a day trip or a weekend trip. So in that case, having a car would facilitate that. And you know, for you, if you work from home, maybe you would rather have a gym membership so you can go out of your house. Or not even that, you can do like workout classes where you go out and do Zumba or Pilates or yoga and you just meet more people. Like, I want you to think of your life as a blank canvas. You can do whatever you want. And the moment you paint a picture you don't like, you can get another canvas, or you can just paint all over it, you know, paint white and then just kind of like restart. There's so much flexibility and we just don't realize it because we're so used to such a rigid structure. There's an abundance of things we can try, we can do, we can travel to, we can write about, we can do so much. When you stop living life and when you stop viewing life as rules you have to follow or consequences you have to avoid, that's where curiosity begins. That's where you can actually start asking yourself, what do I want? What works for me? What do I enjoy? What do I want to experience more? What do I want to experience less? Do I need support? Would I benefit from a different approach? And I think a very big difference between 2024 me and 2026 me is that I feel safe enough to ask those questions. And I think the reason why I feel safe enough, it's because I have the realization and the understanding that no one is expecting me to live life a certain way. And if you are living your life and you have someone in your life who's forcing you to live life however they want or how they think you should, I just want you to know you can break ties with them. If not now, I hope that in the future you're able to. When there's a right way of doing things or a specific way where things should be done, anything different than that becomes dangerous. And if that's a dynamic you have, you don't really have many choices. It's either the right one or a consequence. Which one are you going to choose? Now, when those consequences disappear, that's when you can have all of those different options. Something that I did notice in those 2024 entries was that I became very aware of my anxiety and my stress. So for example, I would literally go out with my friend, I would buy food, and then I would feel so guilty for not following the diet. I literally had to write like 2 or 3 paragraphs telling myself it's okay that I bought food. Like, I understand that I'm trying to follow a diet, but it's okay if I end up not eating from the diet. It's not the end of the world. Like, I was out with my friend and I was enjoying it. Like, I am safe. Just constantly remind myself, no one is expecting me to follow a diet. Like, I know that's the expectation I'm giving myself, but no one is expecting me to do that. And asking myself those questions is what allowed me to ask myself, no one is expecting me to do that. Why am I expecting that for myself? You know, and I realized I had such a tough relationship with like exercise when I started questioning, why am I struggling so much with this? When I started being curious, because before I would just force myself and I would just conclude I wasn't trying hard enough because I was struggling. You don't have to live life against you. You can live life with you and for you, and that has to come with curiosity. Curiosity in what you want, what works for you and what doesn't, what you want to experience, what you don't want to experience. So I would say healing from this, or redirecting your mindset almost, would be slowly discovering that there are no real consequences. What do I mean by that? Let's say one of my expectations was exercising every single day. A realistic consequence for that would be, when I'm an old lady, if I don't exercise as much as I can right now, I won't be able to go up and down the stairs. Like, it's gonna be really hard for me to move around. That's a realistic consequence. But let me tell you, that is not what I'm stressing about when I'm forcing myself to exercise. I'm stressing about exercise because I feel like people are going to reject me, or people are going to criticize me, or I'm going to feel upset. So when you actually start asking yourself, what am I so afraid of? You realize that there is no harm coming to you. I needed to not go to the gym and then see that there was no consequence to me not going to the gym to realize that I am safe if I don't meet that expectation. I needed to have my mornings where I didn't like wake up early and still have a productive day after that, or still enjoy my day, for me to realize, oh, I actually don't need to wake up super early every single day. If that's not the lifestyle that I want and nobody's expecting me to have that lifestyle, I should be okay. I don't know, I feel like no one will focus so much on your life as you, because it's your life. I feel like everyone is just focusing that much in their own lives. Just know that life is not this set of rules or this set of expectations that you have to meet. Life can be whatever you want it to be. Life can go the way that you want it to go. If you want to go to university, if you want to just skip that and just go to work, or if you want to become someone who travels, you can do whatever you want. Like, you do have that free will. You can live your life without that sensation of people are going to reject me, or people are going to judge me or criticize me if I don't meet all of those standards. For me, I understand why as a child it was so scary to see my dad come angry at me, but as an adult, I don't care. If anything, let me just do it twice so I can see him get angry at me twice. Also, just know that if something works for you in one stage of your life or in one period of your life, doesn't mean that it's going to keep working for you other periods of your life. Like, you can change. You don't have to stick with one specific routine. You don't have to stick with a specific goal. We change through our experiences, through our friendships, through our relationships, through our work. We change, and our preferences change, and our goals change, and that's okay. Life is something that you live and that you enjoy. It's not something you force yourself to do perfectly. There's no such thing as living life perfectly.